We just don't have any carbon left in our soil. As these problems compound, we approach the cliff even faster, and it's getting kind of scary.
It's scary, man. We are at that point where they're saying, oh, well, we just go to point one. They do these fires and use all that they had with the burned wood, the char, whatever, and then the forest would actually benefit from it.
There's a light that I've seen. It's gold and it's green in the sky. And it's a thought that I've had in the back of my head, but now it's gone.
Charcoal made from plant material or waste in a high temperature ovens with limited oxygen. When you put the resultant char in the soil, it will sequester carbon for thousands of years, and it's carbon negative because it holds carbon that would otherwise remain in the active carbon cycle. So biochar is taking the material that's already in biomass, the carbon that's already in biomass, and grabbing a hold of it, and then when you put it in the soil, it's very recalcitrant. I had to look that up the first time I heard it. It means it doesn't fall apart.
Well, the magic is one of the great wonders of biochar, and it's one of the grave difficulties, ironically, because biochar has so many potential positive effects on the planet and on human society that it becomes unbelievable to the early listener. It can't be that good. It must be magic. You're trying to sell me something that I don't want to buy. For example, biochar in the soil can improve the quality and health of the soil. By doing so, it can improve agricultural yields. At the same time, it can hold water in the soil, which is a critical issue here in California with droughts and so on. Making biochar also makes energy. And of course, with biochar in the soil, we're sequestering carbon. So how is it possible that one very simple physical compound can make such a big difference to the planet?
Teach my boy to be a good man.
I remember 10 years ago, biochar was kind of like, oh, sure. But it's moved leaps and bounds even in the last decade with the scientific understanding, with what's happening in other parts of the world. That's why I'm excited about California really proving it. If we can do it in a state as large and diverse as California, we'll have some great data to be able to convince others about the benefits of biochar.
California, your milk and honey, I can feel it in my bones. Feel it in my bones.
December 1st, 2015, in Paris, at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the French government proposed that all countries increase the amount of carbon in their soil by 0.4% a year. And that was basically meant to remove CO2 from the atmosphere to prevent the increase and more or less essentially level it off at about the present level, which is 400 parts per million.
Which is 40% too high. 37 countries signed on to the proposal, only to have it withdrawn 11 days later as UNFCCC documents must be consensus documents. Countries unwilling to sign on can block it from progressing out of fear that any form of carbon accounting might lead to a carbon tax.
The countries that are, no matter what they say at UNFCCC, that oppose any form of carbon accounting are the United States, Russia, and the Arab oil-producing countries. They all act together.
We are now, more than ever, in a dire race to pull atmospheric carbon down and return it to the soil. Our atmosphere simply cannot process such high levels of carbon. And as the residual heat enters our oceans, they heat up, driving global warming. Currently, we're over 400 parts per million. The safe level is 260 parts per million, meaning we must remove 140 parts per million now.
We've got to start doing the right thing now, no matter who else is ready to follow and do the right thing themselves or not, because we can't wait any longer. This is a crisis that is almost out of hand. We have a very narrow window of opportunity in the next few decades to solve it. Because if we don't, we're committing generations to millions of years of disastrous changes.
Unless we undertake very serious work making our soil healthier, revegetating the land, not doing the things that release that carbon from the soil, there's no way that we can deal with the climate crisis.
It's absolutely critical that the biochar not be placed in the soil by itself. What do? We add compost to biochar, and we place that together into the soil so that the biochar is, to use almost a medical phrase, inoculated.
Factory farming is not necessary at all to feed humans on this planet.
One of the things that we're looking at very seriously is called SRI, that's Strategy for Rice Intensification. We did a small plot last year and had really good results. We never flooded the field. We used a drip system. We prepared the soil by putting in compost and biochar both. What we found was that the ground held the moisture really well. We added virtually no fertilizer, and the yield that we got was almost comparable to a field that had received 5.5 acre-feet per acre of allotted water.
Dearest brother, till I'm up, I might not return at all.
So you think it's okay to grow rice in California?
Yeah, I believe so. Rice really likes heavy clay soil. I wouldn't plant rice in the marginal areas where it won't hold the water like it does here. It's not going to be as efficient, and you're going to spend a lot more for water.
California, milk and honey, I can't.
I believe we could reduce the amount of water it takes to raise rice by anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2. The drought is here right now, and we're going to have more droughts. And I think this is a good wake-up call, and I do believe the state needs to take it seriously.
Well, I think you're so overrated, I sound. I saw you out dancing around, shaking and clapping your hands. If it's useful, you use it in time and hope that it comes back again. You're waiting around to your friends, telling them you're dying just to see you. They might wait around. And now you're so clear to me.